Welcome to Revlog, where Aaron has decided to upstage us today.
What?
The bow tie?
You look very nice.
Well, thank you, Bryan. I think you look nice, too.
Thank you. Thank you.
I do kind of feel like that's a new shirt for Bryan.
Yeah.
Is that a new shirt?
It's actually not. It's actually not. I just didn't have a
This
seasonal
old thing,
opportunity to
that's
wear
what you
it.
said. This old thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. Chris, this old thing.
I know. I'm feeling very insecure up here.
Whatever.
Aaron's in a bow tie.
Whatever.
Bryan is looking dapper as ever. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be with you guys.
Amen.
So it's a good morning. So today we finish out Philippians chapter 3.
Yep.
Right. So we're going 17 through 21, the end of the chapter there. Aaron, kick us off. As you
Really, me? Me first?
Is that
Yes.
okay?
That's so great because I think
You get to eat up the time today.
because I know that there are people who have been listening these last 3 weeks. They just stop listening after 15 minutes, and they think that they're done, and they think that I'm just a prop.
Aaron,
That's why
all I ask is that I have a few scraps of time. Just a few scraps.
Oh, well, I'm honored. I'm honored. It's the bow tie.
You're first.
Okay.
It must be the bow tie.
Yeah.
So first, help us jump into this text. What were your initial reactions to this text?
So this line that Paul puts in there about he's weeping over them and how they're deceived and what I think about when I read this is God really can change a person's heart. Because you know Paul's story, he's weeping over nobody that is not in tow with what he knows the church to be. You know, when we first meet Paul, there's not a weeping bone in his body.
Okay, that's a great contrast to draw from Paul's own life.
Absolutely.
That's really
And to hear him now say, when I consider these people who are deceiving themselves and are aligning themselves with false doctrine, it just causes me to grieve. I'm thinking, God really can change a person's heart. And we can look at Paul and go, you know, if he can change Paul's heart, he can change my heart. He can change whoever I'm praying for. So I think it's an encouragement to see the tenderness that he's showing here.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, God can change anybody's heart. Yeah, that's right.
I'm done. That's it.
I'm stunned. That's just amazing.
So are you just stunned into silence, or are you prepared to give us your side of the coin here?
Point one is, and I only have 4 subpoints to this one. No, the first couple of lines there when Paul, I love all of that, and it's very tender. But the first couple of lines when he's talking about following, follow my example, and there are also others. This is something that I think is huge. It's so important. Paul sets the stage for us to begin to look around for mentors, for examples to follow. There's a book called Thomas à Kempis, The Imitation of Christ.
Yeah.
But Paul also says there are people who are not Jesus Christ himself that you may look to for encouragement and for understanding of how to live in a particular way. And I think that this is so lacking often from my own understanding of theology or my own explanation of theology to other people is here's how it actually works in daily living.
Absolutely.
And we now live, we're 2,000 years on, and we have not only all of the folks in the Bible who we would look to as examples. I mean, there are plenty of people in the Bible not to imitate,
Right.
Also, I must say. But we have all of the people who are exemplary in the Bible, but we also have 2,000 years of Christian history of people who have lived the faith well.
Yeah, that's right.
Not that we idolize them, but that we look to them and we can say, well, how did Thomas Aquinas, face this problem, or how did what did G.K. Chesterton have to say about this? Or
was he a good author?
He inspired the best.
He inspired me. He was a good author.
or what did, how about this person who influenced me growing up? I saw this person doing that, or I saw her doing this. How did people teach me? Or who can I go to right now?
Right, yeah, that's right.
Even now.
And I think you're onto something, and that's part of what I think is how we define discipleship, right? So
Yes.
discipling is helping people live out their faith day by day. So what does that
Right.
practically look like for me to follow Christ today? And what are some practical ways that can happen in my life? And we need people to help us to walk through that.
We do, and I think to encourage people to do that is really good. We look at Paul sometimes, and I've read things like this. Imitate me as I also imitate Christ.
That's right.
And I've thought, some people might think he's being a little braggadocious, but actually that's a great mercy because he's not just saying, do this, or here's what you should be thinking. That's not very merciful at all.
I've thought about that too as we think about discipleship, that in those same way, Paul says this a couple of times, imitate me as I imitate Christ. And many in the church think that's a prideful thing to say. Like,
Right.
I'm saying, Bryan, could you say that? Could you tell someone right now, imitate me as I imitate Christ, like Paul did? And some push back and say that's prideful, but I don't think it is. I think that's what discipling is, and I think it's helping people understand the walk.
That's exactly right. And the Lord will be your judge if you're doing this from a point of pride. But I think to say to people, I face that exact thing, and it has gotten the best of me every time until 6 months ago. Here's what I realized, and then I did this, and it was a different kind of outcome.
Yeah, and this
You
is how
can
the
do
Lord
this
brought
too.
me through,
Yes,
right? The Lord brought
exactly.
me through in
Exactly.
this way.
And I think it's the transparency with which you live
Yes.
your life out. Because
Yes.
in order just to read that, to say imitate me, and if you stop there, but the fact that he's the thorn in his flesh, or some of these, just knowing the history of Paul himself, it's you can't say that without some consequence of going, here it is. And he's about to say, I am poured out like a drink offering. I've given everything that I can because it's worth it.
That's a brilliant point to point to Paul's transparency. Because he didn't say imitate me without also saying I am the chiefest among sinners.
That's right.
That's right.
And so
Amen.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, Aaron, as we finish out chapter 3, what question came to mind?
Just as I look around at the landscape around me, the people that I'm praying for,
Bryan and I.
Yeah, well, I guess so. Is how am I looking at these people? How am I praying for them? Because it's easy to say, change them, or it's easy to say, without really grieving. If I look at folks that I want desperately to know Jesus, and to bring my own judgment, or how do I say that? To look at how Paul is loving these people, desperately wanting them to receive Jesus, and I don't know that my prayers are always that way. Am I praying for people with a real desperation, or I'm just saying, God change their heart? I think if I read this correctly, Paul is absolutely devastated that people would not receive Jesus and have that hope, and wanting them to have hope. And I don't know that I'm that desperate as I pray for my brothers and sisters. So I think I need to check that as I'm before the Lord, going, I really want these people to know you, and I want to be closer to you. And are my prayers as desperate as they should be?
Yeah. No, I hear you. I find that myself too, where the fervency of my prayers is just lacking.
Yeah.
And
I've felt that many times. Not that the fervency of your prayers are lacking, but my own.
yeah, that one time I prayed for you, and you said, "Chris, that wasn't strong enough."
I've never prayed for you since.
Could I have extra strength, please?
Yeah.
Lord bless Bryan.
Wow.
May he find you. I'm gonna go on. So. I get it. I feel the same way, and I think we should examine our heart even in prayer and ask the Lord.
It is. Even that statement right there, Lord bless Bryan. sometimes, I just, as people come
have
to
issue?
mind,
Take issue with that?
I'll say that, I'll say a short sentence prayer like that, which I think can be efficacious. The fact that they come to mind and you pray for them immediately, but I think I often just stop there. That to go back and go, Lord, you brought them to my mind earlier, and I love them so much, and I want, even my brother in Christ, that I just want you to be effective in your ministry as I pray for you. It's not just that they will come to Christ, but that you will be effective in your walk.
Right.
Yeah.
That
And sometimes that does mean entering in to a person's life by saying something like, praying something like, Lord, what does he need?
Yeah.
What does he need?
Well, and I notice
we
in
don't
myself,
always know that.
I mean, this, I guess, is a moment of confession. But, I notice in myself, one of the things I fall into are the traps of acedia, where, there's a lot of things I don't care about that I
Yep.
should. And some of those in my prayers, like, why don't I care more
Well, and that's
about
fodder.
this person?
Yeah.
That's
Right.
fodder for prayer
Right.
there too.
Yeah,
Lord,
exactly.
I feel
I
apathetic.
say, Lord, forgive me that I don't care about this person enough.
Yes, exactly.
To pray fervently for them.
we're talking about praying for Brian, so
Yeah, that's right. We're
why
talking
don't
about-
you care about Brian? That's a deeper conversation.
Well, I will tell you, the one thing that really helped me, and when I started praying for Brian, was one time he invited me over for dinner. And he invited me over for dinner. And not
the
only,
table fellowship was so sweet, Aaron. You should have been there.
Until you served me banana pudding.
That's true.
Which, if you
That is
don't know,
true.
bananas are my enemy. And so I just...
And also, if you don't know, Brian's never invited me over to dinner. So, full disclosure, it's out there. Brian, what questions
it was
do you
an
have of the
intentional
text?
moment where I was invited to Brian's house for dinner and Aaron was not.
That's right.
I mean, so... Brian, you care to elaborate?
Are we really just
It's
putting
out
it
there.
all out there?
It's out there.
Now I have to invite. Anyway,
And I mean, it's so easy to pray for Linda Lee.
Amen.
So easy to pray for her. Just...
okay, this is. I must rise and say that this is ridiculous.
We have really gotten sidetracked here. So let's finish this out. So, Brian, your question of the text, not of us, but your question of this. What question came to mind as you reading the text this week?
Well, Aaron, no, could I explain a particular component of the Christ life to someone if asked? In other words, could I say imitate me, but what would I be telling them to imitate? How would my life be didactic to somebody in that way? How could I teach somebody to do something? Often I think I just sort of back into a certain thing without understanding how that happened. But the Christian life is a life of intention, isn't it? I mean, many times, not just the skin of your teeth. Mm-hmm. And so how could I answer somebody who would say, well, how do I forgive?
Yeah.
Well, just read the Bible more and that's not an answer.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well said.
So how could I forgive?
The two of us. Is that where you're going with that?
Maybe.
Well, we would love to hear your thoughts on the end of Philippians chapter 3, if you would comment below.